think it's has a lot to do with preference. Like different people have different preferences on what they want their tank to look like, how they want to like scape their tank, and how much rock they want to put in there. So it all kind of depends on how you want to personalize your tank. And I think that's one thing that I really enjoy about aquascaping is, you can choose how your tank look. You don't have to specifically do a certain thing.
What's up, Reef fanatics? Welcome to another Coral Reef Talk podcast episode. In this episode, we're talking all about aquascaping and the rock work in your tank. I'm here with Levi Peterson as always. And Levi, a lot of people have been asking when we're going to jump back in a podcast episode, and they look forward to hearing what you have to say about many of the topics that we talk about. So we are back. Are you excited? Are you ready to jump back into this topic?
I'm very excited. This is going to be a fun topic today.
Yeah, so today we're talking about aquascape and the rock work in your aquarium. And I know that when I first started, you had to figure out how much rock for your aquarium. So I guess we can kind of start there. What are your recommendations? What have you learned throughout your years as far as how much rock do you need for your aquarium? Because there's a lot of tanks that are minimalistic and there's not a lot of rock in them. And then you see tanks that have a ton of rock in them.
Yep.
So what's your idea?
I mean, personally, I think you should have live rock in your tank, or rock in general, just because it's a good biofilter. But also, I think has a lot to do with preference. Like different people have different preferences on what they want their tank to look like, how they want to like scape their tank, and how much rock they want to put in there. So it all kind of depends on how you want to personalize your tank. And I think that's one thing that I really enjoy about aquascaping is, you can choose how your tank look. You don't have to specifically do a certain thing. So that's definitely one thing I really enjoy about aquascaping is there's no same aquascape out there really. You get to kind of do your own little thing with it. But I think it really just comes down to kind of what your preference is and how you want to scape your tank.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because you hear things from 1 pound per gallon per rock, which now I could see that's like half a pound of rock. Depending, like you said, depending on what you want to do at your tank, as long as your filtration is up to par, you can really have a minimalistic look. And we're going to jump into some of those different looks here in a second. But before we do that, we're going to kind of define aquascape. And I kind of wrote it down like this. An aquascape is the rock structure in an aquarium that makes up the overall look of your tank. And it provides a place for beneficial bacteria to grow. So it is a place where you're going to be putting your corals if you decide to have a coral tank. But yeah, there's many different looks like you mentioned.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just one thing you're able to kind of personalize yourself and kind of do your own little thing. Like my 75 gallon, I think I have about 25 pounds of rock total in it when I scaped it. So, I mean, some people might say, oh, that's not enough, or some people might say, no, that's fine. And I've had no issues, with that amount of live rock. I mean, it does great. Everything's been doing really well lately, so no complaints.
Yeah. Now, whenever you aquascape a tank, are you necessarily going for like an artsy type of look for your tank? Are you planning out like, oh, I want 2 islands and stuff? For me, with my 210 gallon tank, I wanted to kind of have like 3 island structures.
Yeah.
But I also didn't want to build them up too tall to where the coral placement was awkward, or corals would grow and overshadow things either.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, what's your thought process for, well, because you have many different tanks. You have the smaller tanks, you have your 75 gallon tank. Are you going, because I know you go for like a natural look, so what's the thought process behind your rock?
So with the 75 specifically, I got this certain area that I like to snorkel and dive in the keys that I just try to mimic to the best of my ability in that aquarium. So that's kind of where I got that specific scape from. A lot of the other scapes that I have on these smaller tanks behind me are kind of just minimalistic and just standard, like, Elizabeth's tank, she has a bunch of like just branch rock from real reef rock in there, just kind of thrown in there and stacked on top of each other, which goes for a different look. But I personally try to achieve a more natural look in my specific aquariums as to what I'm going to keep in that tank, where it's coming from. I want to try to mimic the natural environment of that specific, area to the best of my ability. And you don't have to do that by any means. That's just my personal preference and what I like to do with my aquariums. But a lot of people that I know, you have a reef tank with fish from all different places and corals from all different areas, and that's completely fine and that's totally cool. But me personally, I like to kind of keep tanks with things from specific areas and try to kind of scape the tank with how I think it would look in the wild. So that's just my personal preference.
Yeah, that's super cool. And you can definitely achieve that look if you want to go all natural, pick a specific location like you do in your tank. And there's many different rocks to choose from. And there's a lot of, so you can get live rock that's actually cultured from the ocean.
Yep.
But you can also get a lot of man-made rock that's on the market today. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to ask you a question. Are you drinking anything right now? What are you drinking during the podcast?
Not right now. I usually have a drink with me, but I do not today.
So I am working on Magic Mind. So Magic Mind is something I've been drinking lately, and it just gives me a energy boost and a just mental clarity to focus on things. I remember one day I had to do a water change. I had to do tank maintenance. I had to edit a video, and I wasn't feeling like doing it. But after taking a Magic Mind, about 10 minutes later, this stuff dials you in. So I don't know if you've heard of Magic Mind, but this stuff focuses you in. I was able to knock out all the tank maintenance, did the dishes, and got up there and edited a video and did some other chores around the house too. So I was like dialed in. But Magic Mind, I know it's the end of January, but they are doing a Magic Mind bundle. It is for your mental wealth. So I should probably drink this real quick so I can get focused. But all about mental wealth. So mental wealth is like healthy diet, healthy exercise, stress management, and just the focus and clarity that you get from Magic Mind is amazing. So it's definitely helped me, and I hope it can help you guys. So for you guys that are listening or watching the podcast, you can save 45% off your Magic Mind bundle, and that includes Magic Mind Sleep Elixir, which helps you get a better night's sleep as well. So go ahead, check out Magic Mind. You can go to magicmind.com/TheCoralReefJan, and that's going to save you 45%. So magicmind.com/TheCoralReefJan. So go ahead and check that out. But jumping back into it, you brought some pictures for us to look at. Do you want to go ahead and jump into one?
Yeah, let's do it. So I just kind of sent Joey some pictures of kind of just different types of aquascape, different styles, just a few common ones. And actually, this one right here is actually kind of uncommon, to be honest with you. But this is a floating aquascape, which means the middle structure of this tank, as you can see with all the corals on it, is not touching the ground. And this is a unique style. And with a lot of the times, people do these with smaller aquariums. And I just think it's really cool because you can kind of get that underside ledge that you won't necessarily get scaping any other way. And you kind of get to use the whole entire rock. And I think that's just a super unique way. You don't see this too often, but I think it's definitely something different you can do if you're looking to kind of throw a little bit different look to a tank that not many people have. So, I mean, that's definitely a really unique look to it. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely love that look. And it helps with water circulation and water flow.
Yep, absolutely.
Because a lot of times, I guess for maybe you're a beginner reefer, but a lot of times as a beginner, you may stack up your rocks and just put them all together, and that hinders the water flow in your tank, and it creates dead spots in your tank.
Yep.
So talking about how to create a good aquascape, you kind of want something that is open, something where water can flow through and around. So you don't want it just all up against the back glass. So having something floating like that is really, really cool. because you get that circulation all the way around the rock. So not only do you get the awesome look that you're talking about, but you also get that water flow and that nice clean, like there's not going to be any dead spots in there for sure.
Absolutely.
So super cool. And then one thing that I try to look out for when building an aquascape is you don't want like a sharp incline, right?
Yeah.
You want to kind of like stair step it up. You want a gradual hill in your tank. You don't necessarily want tall mountains or peaks. And that's just depending on what corals you're going to keep. You don't want corals to grow and then overshadow the corals underneath.
Exactly.
So when you're planning your aquascape, that's a big thing that you got to think about.
Absolutely.
And so the next one we got here, talking about man-made rock, I think this is similar to the Stax rocks.
Yep. So this is the Marco Rock shelf.
Okay.
So this is just kind of a different style. And I've seen more and more people doing this recently. It gives you more surface area to place corals because you got a more flat rock. And a lot of people tend to just kind of stack it up, spread it out, and make it kind of where it plates out, kind of like this specific scape right here. But basically, with the shelving, you're going to have more area to place your corals instead of like a more round boulder type of rock. So it's going to give you more room to place corals and easier to kind of make little caves here and there and little crevices for your fish and invertebrates to hide out in. And it's just a different look you can go for. But if you're looking to keep a lot of different corals and grow them out, I think this is honestly a pretty good way to do it without taking up a bunch of height in your tank.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely gives you that gradual incline, a lot of flat spots to put the corals in.
Absolutely.
So these come in a lot of flat pieces that you just stack on top of each other.
Yep.
So I know we mentioned off air, but we were talking about Julian Sprung. He has a product called Stacks that's very similar. It's like they took a rock and just sliced it all up for you. I think I would I don't know if I would do an entire tank with that. Maybe I would mix some here and there. But this scape is looking pretty nice, what they got going on. And then the next one you got is this right here.
So this is kind of like just your typical, pile the rocks together type scape. And I mean, some people like this. I personally don't. I just think it looks like a literal pile of rubble. I mean, some people enjoy this, and I mean, if you like this kind of scape, then that's totally up to you. But yeah, I actually know a lot of people that scape like this. You just kind of stack a bunch of rocks together. This specific one, I don't really know why I chose this picture because it's kind of a rough scape. It's literally all thrown together. Yeah, I mean, that's just a basic, kind of stack your rocks on top type deal. But yeah, I really don't know why I chose this scape because it's a little.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great example of what we were talking about earlier, and what you just brought up is like, this is how kind of back in the day you used to cram as much rock as you could in your tank, and kind of just pile it up. And whereas nowadays you probably don't need that much rock, and you can also make it look nicer. And yeah, you eliminate dead spots if you don't do it like this. You're probably creating a lot of dead spaces. You're creating a lot of just areas that you can't really do anything with.
Yep.
As far as placing coral or anything like that. But yeah, so another thing that I like to do when I think about aquascaping is thinking about creating caves in your tank, right? The more hiding places that you can have in your tank, the more comfortable your fish are going to feel. And actually, the more out and open they're going to be and swimming around.
Yep.
Which is kind of crazy to think about. Like, the more hiding places you have for them, the more they're going to be out.
Yeah.
Like, you would think they have hiding places they're going to hide.
I mean, it also will allow you to, in my opinion, keep more fish that way. Because, I mean, if you only have, one little rock in your tank or something and not many areas to hide, the fish are going to have nowhere to go to, sleep or just kind of hide and get away from something if something's chasing it. I mean, if you have plenty of hiding space, everything is going to kind of find its own little area, and you should be totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. Now, another thing when it comes to aquascaping, have you heard of the rule of thirds, or like the 2/3 thing, where you kind of create a grid across your aquarium, and you kind of set like a focal point of like what is going to catch your eye when you lay out your rocks. It's kind of like what they do in photography.
Okay.
Whenever you're taking pictures or whatever, you're kind of trying to draw the spectator or the person that's looking at your photo, you're drawing the eye. Um, so having different focal points in your tank that's going to draw people's attention to that. You can kind of lay out a grid on your tank as you're stacking your rock. But a big thing though, I don't know, I personally haven't done it that way. I kind of just always planned out the tank by, laying like a towel down or something,
Yeah.
stacking the rock, planning the scape. You want to make sure it's going to fit in the aquarium that
Yep.
you have before you put it in, and then kind of place them in the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, I see some people nowadays, they, like you said, kind of get a towel and kind of lay it out, make sure it's going to fit. And I even see some like glue certain chunks of it together, like, epoxy certain parts
mhm.
of their scape together and then connect it as they put it in the tank. So I
Yeah,
think that's a cool way to do it too.
yeah, because you can build your own structures that way, and you're not
Yeah.
just limited to the rock that you purchase. Whereas, so in my experience, starting with a 29-gallon, I basically upgraded. When I upgraded my tanks, I moved that rock each time and then added more with those rocks. So
Yeah.
once I got a 75-gallon tank, I added some rock to it, and I kind of just changed the scape as I went. And then all of that moved to the 210, which kind of moved down to the 125 now. But I never really used the rule of thirds, or I haven't really epoxied or glued rocks together. I kind of put them on top of each other in a way that looked really good.
Hmm.
And if I had rocks that didn't like fit right or whatever, those ended up going in the sump
Yeah.
and things like that. So you don't necessarily have to epoxy, but if you're looking to build like an arch, like that's a big thing too, building arches, connecting like two islands together
Hmm.
with a nice arch, you can surely use super glue, epoxy, and things like that.
Absolutely.
But let's see, you have another one for us, don't you?
Yes, I do.
All right, let's take a look at this guy.
So this is kind of more of like kind of what my wife Elizabeth did with her tank. It's like a kind of branching aquascape, and I think these are really cool. And I mean, it is natural too, because I mean, you got like this is pretty much like a dead coral, pretty much,
Mm,
kind of how it would look in the wild. Just kind of place it in your tank, and then you kind of place your corals on there as you please. The only thing I don't like about the branching kind of style like this is I find it hard to place certain corals because I mean it just you're limited on space because it's literally like little branches
mhm.
and it's awkward. I don't know really how else to explain it. This person did a pretty good job at placing the corals, but I just feel like you kind of don't have as much room to place corals because your corals are going to eventually grow, and then you're going to have them fighting each other, and there's just not much. It's literally just a little branch on there. So I think
Yeah.
that's the only real problem I have with these scapes. But other than that, I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think like having maybe a good combination of that, maybe having
A little bit
a
of
few
both.
few branches here and there, and
Mhm.
maybe building out like a ledge or something that you can easily place rocks or place corals on,
Mhm.
so that when they grow out, because that is probably one of the biggest things. Not only the way your aquascape's going to look, but what corals you're going to get and how they're going
Yeah,
to grow. You got to plan ahead for sure.
absolutely.
Um, so we touched on designing. We touched on the importance of having rock in your tank. Um, what about, are there there's tons of different kinds of rocks that you can get. What is maybe some of the common rocks that you see out there in the hobby?
Let's see. Like, are you talking like brands or just types of rock?
Yeah, we can go brands if you want. If you're
So
looking more man-made, what are some
there's a
brands?
lot
Mm-hmm.
of different brands. Like I could, like off the top of my head, I could name a few, but there's quite literally hundreds of different companies that
Yeah.
do rock. Like for your live rock, for example, you got like KP Aquatics in the Keys,
Mm-hmm.
Tampa Bay Live Rock here in Tampa. There's this like another one called like Gulf Live Rock or something over this way. Then you get into like your Marco rocks. They actually like do the limestone stuff down in South Florida. Julian Stacks rock. That's pretty cool. Comes from the same area, I believe. I think they work together with Marco Rocks on that. Trying to think of any others I can think of off the top of my head. I think Caribsea does artificial. I think they make their own rock, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Addictive
Yeah.
Reef Keeping does a lot of the limestone stuff down in the Keys.
Yeah.
He's known for his rock. And then
There's
another artificial one is going to be like Real Reef Rock. That's a pretty common one.
You got Carib Sea Life Rock.
Carib Sea, yep, exactly.
But yeah, one of the really good ones from when I started, you had Fiji Live Rock that you could get.
Ooh, yes.
That was really good.
Yeah, I think that used to be more common back in the day, because I mean we've gotten in live rock from like Indonesia and Australia and stuff, and by the time you like, especially nowadays, the freight on the rock and stuff, it's so heavy.
Yeah.
And by the time you actually get it in, pay all the fees for freight and shipping, I think it's just too expensive now. Like I think it's just gotten to the point where it's too expensive. And then nowadays you got everyone just all worried about like the different pests you're gonna get in that you risk having on that rock. Yeah, so I mean it all depends.
Yeah, I certainly know about getting some pest on some live rock. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but there's a clicking noise. If you can hear that in the audio pod, or if you're watching, I have a little mantis shrimp that I caught. I wonder if I can show him here. Let's see if I back up. Oh, you can't really see him, but he's in this tank right now. This little tiny tank, and he is working on a little tiny emerald crab right now, trying to take him out.
Nice.
But yeah, that's what that clicking sound is. But we caught him from my son's tank, took him out of the live rock that we got in there, put him in there.
Awesome.
But yeah, so there's live rock, there's dry rock. So live rock is coming in with little microorganisms and beneficial bacteria already on the rock. Once your rock in your tank will eventually turn into live rock, if you're brand new to the hobby. But
I do know like a lot of fish stores nowadays too are starting to kind of do like live rock vats. Like they'll get like a bunch of artificial or just regular standard base rock, throw it into like a big tub and cycle it themselves. And that way, it's like pest free. I personally kind of like getting some of like the live rock from the ocean, because it's always cool to kind of see what kind of stuff you can get. But it can also be not a great thing, because you can get some critters that you do not want, and then you're gonna have to deal with once you put in your tank. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking to keep a nice reef tank or even like a fish only tank or whatever, I mean, it's probably always best, to try to get that clean rock, especially if you want to guarantee that you're not going to have any bad things on it. But if you're feeling a little risky or open to the idea of having hitchhikers, live rock's a cool way to go. So,
yeah, and it's actually like, I mean, we got a mantis shrimp, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It's really cool, and we finally got him out of the tank and put him in his own isolated tank, so that way we can observe him better.
Absolutely.
We can learn about them better. So it's actually a really cool thing. The different stuff that you can bring in on live rock.
I love getting live rock here and there, because I mean, just seeing like the different critters that come in on them. Like even if it's just like last year at Reef Palooza, I got like a couple small pieces from Tampa Bay saltwater, and just the amount of life on like a golf ball size rock is incredible. Just all the critters coming out of it. It's crazy just to see that. And like over time you see different organisms kind of come and go on the rock, like sponges coming on, and like it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it's really neat, and it's also a way to jumpstart your aquarium if you're
Yep,
cycling a new
absolutely.
tank. So tons of benefit to starting a tank with live rock.
Yep,
You can do it with dry rock too. It's a little bit longer of a process. It still works. I
yep,
know there's debates out there in the forums of dry rock's better, no live rock's better, no all these different things, but
yeah,
you can have a nice aquarium with dry rock or live rock. So,
yeah, absolutely.
um, but final thoughts here for someone new to the aquarium hobby, setting up maybe their first tank, second tank, as far as aquascaping their tank. What are like the main takeaways or the main advice you
Yeah.
have for?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like the main takeaways are like, yeah, you can look for advice from other people on kind of how to scape your tank or what you need to do. But when it all comes down to it, it's your tank, and you're going to be the one staring at this tank for however long you have this said tank. So kind of go with your preference. Do what you want to do with the tank. Yeah, right. Take ideas here and there from other people, or take like suggestions maybe. But I mean, in the long run, it's your tank. Do what you want to do. You don't have to listen to what other people have to say about your scape. So yeah, just do what you want to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Have fun with it, and just, I mean, make it as cool, artsy looking as you want, or not so cool, as long as it's
Yeah,
functional and it works great for you. And
absolutely.
um, my one of my main takeaways is just think about what type of corals you want to put in the tank and how they're going to grow, and then what
Mhm.
that's going to look like on your rock work. But
Yep.
yeah, absolutely, make it your own. Have fun with it. Um, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode talking about aquascapes and rock work. If you have any questions or comments, let us know in the comment section below. All the information and details will be in the show notes about today's episode. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and listening. And I know that YouTube is going to show you a video to click on, and it thinks you're going to love it. So let me know in the comments if that's a good choice for you. And we'll see you in the next one.
See it.